Welcome back to another movie review video. You all voted for it in the community tab. Today I'm looking at the Pet Sematary remake that came out in 2019. A while ago I reviewed the Child's Play remake, which just so happened to also release in 2019, and it wasn't all that bad. Obviously I still enjoy the original more, but it wasn't as bad as people were saying that it was. For Pet Sematary though, I actually think I enjoyed this one more than the original. This movie makes a few changes, and for the most part they all work for me. I just watched the original Pet Sematary about a month ago, and I thought it was pretty decent. Pet Sematary 2019 just had me more invested for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I knew I was making a video on it, but regardless, I still found myself having a better time with this compared to the original. I read some reviews after I finished watching it, and damn, I guess I'm in the minority. Cause for me personally, I think this might be one of the most underrated horror remakes ever. I never hear anyone talk about it, and I guess it's because no one really cared about it. I remember seeing the trailers years ago, and they kind of creeped me out a little bit. The kids with the animal masks banging their little drums or whatever, and they're walking through the woods. However, those kids are seen one time and one time only in this movie. I thought they were going to play a major part, and I think that would have been somewhat interesting. There's a few directions I thought Pet Sematary was going to go, but they just sort of stick to the basic retelling. There's mention of a Wendigo, characters hear whispers coming from the woods, and we also get a bit more of Rachel's sister Zelda, but none of those things are really looked into all that much. Still, the last half of the movie really stepped it up in terms of being different from the original, and like I said, it worked for me. I'll talk more about some of those things in a bit. So grab your shovels and let's take a closer look at Pet Sematary 2019. The first half of this movie sticks to the basics pretty much. So we have our family, the Creeds, moving from Boston to a new home. We have Lewis, his wife Rachel, and their two kids Gage and Ellie. And pretty much right out of the gate we already have some semi-truck foreshadowing. And it's also early on where we get the parade of little kids in animal masks wheeling a dead dog into the woods. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the only time we see these kids. Ellie goes to take a peek and she wanders into the Pet Sematary, and here's where we get introduced to Judd, played by John Lithgow. John Lithgow as Judd is such a good casting choice, but I will say throughout this movie, he doesn't feel as like wholesome slash friendly as the original Judd in the original Pet Sematary. I still like Judd in this movie, but just something felt a touch different. But speaking of Judd, he's hearing whispers from the woods telling him to come back. Whoa, that's new. All of this cemetery business has Ellie wondering about death, so her parents kind of go back and forth going over what they think happens after you die.
Church and Mommy and me, we're gonna be around a long, long time.
And Gage?
Ellie, I got some bad news for you. Soon after this, we get our first glimpse of Rachel's sister Zelda, and oh boy, she is definitely the scariest part of both of the Pet Sematary movies. In case you didn't know, Lewis is a doctor, and right on schedule, a very messed up patient rolls in named Victor, and he dies right in front of poor Lewis, and he tried his best to save him, but hey, you win some, you lose. Oh, Victor, don't do that! The undead Victor tells Lewis that the barrier is not meant to be broken. But we're not done with Victor quite yet, because he's taken Lewis on a little late-night stroll through one of those Monsters Inc. doors. He warns him about the sour ground past the cemetery. The moving in process continues to be a rough one, because later, they find Church, their cat, dead. Poor Winston Churchill. And everyone's just having a rough time because when Lewis is talking about how twisted Church's body was, Rachel gets some Zelda flashbacks. Rachel and Zelda's backstory is a bit different in this movie. Rachel is actually a bit more responsible for her sister's death. Just like the original, their parents are away, and there's a dumbwaiter in their house that Rachel is not supposed to use, but she uses it anyway to send her sister some food, and well, one thing leads to another. Damn, in the original, Rachel just didn't help her sister when she was choking, but now she, like, caused her sister to fall to her death. Holy crap. Well, we move on from a dead sister to a dead cat, but Church is not going to be buried in the Pet Sematary. Instead, Judd decides to take Lewis somewhere that's beyond the Pet Sematary. Ooh boy, that doesn't sound too good. But random creature wailing aside, Lewis buries Church. The next morning, Lewis and Rachel tell Ellie that Church ran away, but it turns out that that's not the case. Well, I guess with Church back, everything can go back to normal. Church might be back, but he's definitely being a menace, and he leads Lewis to the basement where we get some more visions. This time Lewis sees a road, hears Gage, and also sees a semi-truck. I wonder what all of that could mean. Lewis is dealing with all of this freaky stuff, but Rachel is not having it any easier. She can still hear her sister in the walls. Nuh-uh, fuck that. Probably the creepiest moment in the movie by far. Zelda, anything going on with her, no. Lewis has a chat with Judd, and this is where Judd spills the beans on the whole bringing back dead animals thing, and in this conversation is where he also mentions the Wendigo, which, spoiler, we don't really get the Wendigo in this movie. I wanted a big creature, that would've been cool. But we get something kind of similar, but we'll get to that later. The past couple of days, church has just been a big pain in the ass, so Lewis decides it might be best to put the kitty cat to sleep, but he can't bring himself to do it. So instead, he drops Church off in the middle of nowhere and just leaves him. It's now time to celebrate Ellie's birthday, but at her party, she's feeling a bit down. She thinks it's her fault that Church ran away because she didn't want him sleeping in her room anymore. And you know what? It honestly breaks my heart. But you won't be sad for long, Ellie, because look who it is! It's Church coming down the road. Oh my god, wait a minute, it's gonna be Ellie instead of Gage? Oh, false alarm, it's still gonna be Gage. Oh, damn. In probably the biggest change in the movie, Ellie is the one that gets killed and not little Gage, and that switch up really works for me because I care more about Ellie than Gage, so the fact that she's the one that gets taken out, it leaves me a bit like, oh damn, that sucks. Of course, it would still suck if Gage got hit by the truck too, but I'm more attached to Ellie since she's been featured more. And we also get another change in this movie because at the funeral, Rachel's parents don't beat the hell out of Lewis for like having one of their grandchildren killed. They're not really a factor at all. Rachel does take Gage and go back to her parents' house in Boston. That's somewhat similar to what happens in Pet Sematary, except, you know, little switcheroo with the kids. So now that Lewis is left alone, he goes to have a couple of drinks with Judd, and oh damn, Lewis, we spiking drinks now? Before Judd passes out, he tells Lewis do not go over to the pet cemetery. And he actually doesn't. Instead, he goes to a human cemetery, and no, yeah, he's gonna dig his daughter out of her grave. But hey, let's go check on Rachel. Going through all of this, I don't think it was the best idea to go to the house that your sister died in, but hey, you do you. And to add on top of that, Gage is now starting to see Victor's ghost as well. So anyways, Lewis buries Ellie in the sour ground beyond the pet cemetery, and later that night, Church stops by for a visit, and after Lewis takes a peek outside, he finds some footprints leading down to the basement. He finds a bed down there with one of those animal masks.
Daddy.
Oh hey look, Ellie's back. She's not looking too great, but she does remember exactly what happened, and she pretty much knows that she's dead. She's pretty chill about it, actually.
I'm dead, aren't I?
Hell, the next day she's up and dancing around. She is getting a bit aggressive though. Rachel's on her way back home because Lewis isn't answering any of her calls, so she calls up Judd and lets him know what's going on. Judd goes to check on Lewis and is immediately onto him and even hints at killing Ellie to undo whatever mess he's gotten himself into. Ellie isn't too pleased with that idea. She decides to hide somewhere in Judd's house, and he actually avoids the Achilles slice the first time around, but he can't stop the Church and Ellie tag team. Ellie confronts Judd like she's John Kramer.
Hello, Judd.
She starts shit-talking Judd's wife, then turns into his wife, and says that he's gonna suffer with her and everyone else in Pet Sematary. So I guess this is our somewhat reveal of the Wendigo-esque creature, because Wendigos can like look like humans or whatever, and she can like swap her face and look like different people. So I guess that is the creature that is wailing in the distance all the time. But, it's not as epic as I wanted it to be, but it's still pretty cool. Oh damn, Rachel's home, and she knows something is up. But to give Lewis some props, he does come clean right away and tells her everything. Ellie gives her mommy a big hug, but Rachel is freaking out, and Ellie will not be disrespected like that.
It's okay. I don't want her here either.
Man, Rachel is really going through it. She's now in Zelda's shoes, and her body is all sorts of twisted. It's all in her head, but her dead daughter trying to kill her isn't. While Rachel's doing that, Lewis finds Judd's dead body and realizes that his daughter might be a bit dangerous, so he goes back to his house where Rachel is dangling poor Gage out of the window for him to catch. She's able to save her son, but sadly she gets stabbed right after. Ellie does a little trash talking about letting her die in the road and praying that her sister Zelda would die. Rachel tells her that she is not her daughter, and she gets stabbed again. Before she bleeds out, she tells Lewis to not bury her where he buried the others, but Ellie comes out of nowhere and hits him with a chair. Lewis might not be the one to bury her beyond Pet Sematary, but her dead daughter will. Lewis comes to, and after making sure little Gage is safe in the car, he goes over to the Pet Sematary. Ellie says that he's too late, and she tries to kill him, but Lewis gets the upper hand. He nearly kills his daughter, but Rachel comes in for the save, killing her husband. They drag him away so he can be the next one buried. Well, at least now they can all be a family once again, They just need to add one more member. That's when the movie ends, but when the credits roll, we get a cover of the Pet Sematary theme song that played during the end credits of the original. That one was done by the Ramones. This time we have Starcrawler singing Pet Sematary. I thought that was pretty cool. And there you go. That's Pet Sematary 2019. I love the last half of this movie, and that's really thanks to Ellie. Picking her to be the one to get buried over Gage was such a smart move. As I mentioned earlier, I cared more about Ellie, and Lewis and Rachel having to protect Gage after Ellie turns evil is a better use of Gage's character. And I know, the book, what about the book, the source material, yada yada yada. If I'm being completely honest, I don't really care. I definitely prefer the creepy shape-shifting Ellie over silly evil Gage. I'm probably once again in the minority. I think the reason why I'm so high on this movie is because I thought it was going to be a borderline shot-for-shot remake with some dumb changes, so when it ended up being one of the better horror remakes I've seen, that sort of skyrocketed my love for it. Maybe as the weeks go by, my opinion will change. Who knows? If you've seen Pet Sematary 2019, let me know your thoughts on this remake in the comments. More movie reviews and list videos coming soon. Goodbye.